All right, today's question comes from Doug in Missouri. I'm struggling with how much to help my son and daughter-in-law financially. They are both mid-30s, and she recently became a veterinarian with about $400,000 in student loans, which has severely affected their ability to buy a house or save any money. Financially, I could easily help them as I have several million saved, but I want them to figure this out themselves. However, I feel guilty for not helping them. Both my wife and I are afraid it's going to be the wrong decision. I need some perspective, as I'm just not sure what the best thing to do is. Dave, do you know how much vets make? I don't.
More than a lot of doctors.
Do they?
I mean, I don't know how long she's been in practice or where she is, but 100 to 200.
Okay. So, if you take out $400,000 to become a doctor, whether a doctor of a person or a doctor of a animal, I think you got to work together and figure it out. You got to get a long-term plan. I've never been in a position like this parent's in. You've got more perspective on that than I do. I want folks who signed on a dotted line that said, I agree that you're going to help me get my education, and I promise to pay you back. I felt an obligation to pay people back. Even when I didn't fully understand what I was signing, at the end of the day, I had to look at that paper and say, I signed it, I borrowed it, I got to figure it out. So that's where my bent is. But I've never been in the position where I could help somebody to a tune of, I could wipe this out one afternoon and take care of it for them. Mm-hmm. So I get that temptation for my kids. But I'm hesitant to do that. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think most people go too far one direction or the other.
Okay.
Like he just writes the check and they don't feel any pain and they just bop off into the sunset, right? Or he does nothing and they languish for years when he could have stroked a check and bailed them out.
Helped them out.
So the only thing I've been able to figure out that's kind of in the middle is if you're going to get my money, you're going to get my coaching.
Comes with strings. There you go.
And my coaching is nothing to do with me. It's not about controlling. Yeah. It's about you're going to be on a path that I agree with or I'm not financing it.
Right.
And so if you could get them on a tight budget, they're not out spending money like they're crazy. They're like they're in Congress or something. They're on a budget. They're working hard. They're making progress. And you agreed to match everything they throw to the student loan. As long as they're on a path. Right. Now, if they're paying $10 on the student loan and they make $350,000, no, they're not on a path. Right. But if they're putting $150,000 on that student loan or $200,000 on it, and they're going to do that in 18 months or something, and they're going to live on beans and rice, and they're going to do the stuff, then they got their engine running. I'll pour some gas in their engine.
I like that. Okay, so no new cars, no big house.
Yeah, they're working a plan that I think they should work.
Right.
Which is what they would have to do if I wasn't there as dad.
Right.
And this guy, I'm putting the dad shoes on with this guy, right? But if I wasn't there, what would they have to do? Well, they'd be dirt under their fingernails, man. I mean, they'd be scratching and clawing, right?
Right.
And so, there's a difference between abandonment on one end of the spectrum, enabling
right.
on the other end of the spectrum, which is just like, oh, it's just not fair. They got the student loans. We're just going to write them a check and just forgive all their student loans, and all this crap's happening in Washington, right? And it's sad that the girl's got student loans, and I don't want her to. I feel bad for her. If you got student loans out there, I feel bad for you. But I don't want the government to forgive them.
Right.
I want you to work through them, and I want us into society to come around you. And I want them to stop making the student loans before they start talking about forgiving them, by the way. That's a side issue, too. But anyway, I said that on our Borrowed Future podcast and didn't stir up near as much as when I said it on Fox this morning. But anyway, the point being that, yes, I want to help them. But I want to help them if they're
equally invested in helping themselves.
If someone
right?
is not doing good things for themselves and you finance that, that is not helping them.
Correct.
That is harming them.
It's enabling them. That's
right. Giving a drunk a drink. That's buying a cocaine addict his next bag.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're a weed addict. Here, I'll buy you a bag. That's not helpful to finance misbehavior, finance behaviors that aren't causing them to win. But if they're moving in the right direction and I can come alongside them and say, hey, what if you did this, this, and this? And if you did those three things and you really play through, I'll do this to put some gas in your little engine.
Right.
But let's get the little engine going down, the little engine that could, right, going down the tracks here. And then I will join hands with them. But, another example of that is I had a friend that's very wealthy, and he refused to pay for a dime of his kid's college because he had to work his way through, and so he appreciated his education because he had dirt under his fingernails, and he had to scratch and claw to get his education. And he's worth probably $1 billion. Wouldn't pay for a dime of his kid's college. And I respect that. I understand his reasoning, and, I mean, he's hardcore, right?
All right.
I paid for 100% of my kids' college.
Yeah.
But I did not pay for 100% of kids' college who were misbehaving.
Right.
They weren't. They were walking with God. They weren't down there sleeping around all over the campus. They weren't doing drugs. They weren't drunk in their bed and missing classes. So they were functional students.
Right.
Bringing home grades, walking a lifestyle and a life that I approved of. I'll finance that.
Right.
Well, they need to get a job. That is their job then, is behaving. And in that world, that's a big job.
And I want to talk to folks that are my age, that are younger than me, that are thinking about college. If you take money from somebody else, they get to speak into how you spend it. That's how that works. And going back to our original,
that's not controlling.
No, that is a part of that's a part of the agreement. If I give you money to go to college, if I give you money to pay off your student loans, I get to speak into how you spend it because it's mine. It's a gift, right? And it's this. I goes back to that.
Yeah, I had a guy call me from Michigan one time. And he said, my son has decided he's going to an expensive school that we can't afford, so it's going to mean student loan debt. What do I do? My son told me this is what he's doing. And I said, well, it starts way back when your son started telling you stuff.
This is a 6-year-old problem. This is an 18-year-old problem.
My son doesn't tell me stuff. I tell him stuff. That's
exactly
how that works.
Right. Yes.
Especially when it's me writing the freaking checks. So I'm going to tell you where your little butt's going to school if I'm paying for it.
That's right.
And so we don't need to visit colleges. I'll help you with this.
That's right. That's right.
Because, you could visit 2. There's 2 here that are in your budget. You can go look at them. I don't even need to go with you. And so you don't fall in love with the beauty of the college campus and go $250,000 in debt to get a degree in left-handed puppetry.
But it goes back to that conversation we were talking about in a segment ago. I want everyone to understand when you take money from somebody, you're also taking whatever else they're going to hand you, right? Whatever else they're going to demand of you, whatever else they're going to make you do.
Well, and when we start talking about, we'll parlay this. This guy, the answer to the question for me is, if they will do smart things, help them. Help them do smart things. But if they're not,
I want to tell them, man,
yeah.
I don't care if you're a veterinarian. I don't care if you're a surgeon. I don't care if you're a medical doctor. If you have $400,000 in debt, you're going to live like a freshman in college until you get this stuff paid off. I don't care what people in your partnership.
Don't talk to me about buying a recliner. Sit on the beanbag.
Yep. I don't care what your partners are driving at your veterinary clinic. You drive your old car until you get this stuff paid off, man.
Yep, exactly. And if you're waiting around the government to fix it, let me tell you what happens, okay? They announced, you can probably tell me, it's probably it's 15 years ago roughly, the federal government announced that the private student loan forgiveness program.
Oh, man.
If you work 10 years in an underserved situation and you pay your bill on time, we'll forgive the remaining of your debt that is still there at the end of 10 years.
Dave, I worked with these law students.
175,439 people have applied for that. 175,000 people have applied for that. To date, 3,000 of the 175,000, 3,174 have gotten it.
I worked with so many
wonderful
kids.
If you're waiting on the government to fix your life, including the discussions that are going on up there right now, your life's going to suck because you're worshiping a dead God. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.